Over the last few months, social media feeds have been inundated by AI slop. Easy to produce content that arrives in massive quantities and is usually imposed on users. You never seek it out, but you're here like the rest of us, seeing endless reels of orange cats getting up to various mischief or seeing various tragedies befall them. Pictures of shrimp Jesus, which are fooling boomers on Facebook into thinking that the revelation is here, or it's the endless sloshing scroll of sludge that is Instagram Reels and features tons of creatures and contraptions that were not mentioned in the Bible and whose very existence as representations on a flat screen must offend whatever principle you believe created this universe, whether secular or religious. A lot of people have interpreted this as a symptom or a side effect of adopting the technology too quickly, of not putting in content moderation guardrails, of not being able to keep up with scammers. This story assumes that the platforms don't want the slop to be there, or that they shouldn't want it to be there. But instead of seeing slop as collateral damage, or as something that's happened unintentionally, what if we took it instead as the central manifestation of internet culture and platform governance in this era? What if instead of seeing slop as kind of a marginal phenomenon, we place it right at the center of how we understand the internet in the year of our Lord 2025? When you put slop at the center of the picture and poke at it, interesting things start to come out. We are not living under your parents' or your grandparents' capitalism, and AI slop is one of the ways we know that. I think we live under an economic and cultural system that I'd call slop capitalism, where the primary product is slop in whatever form, whether it's an AI reel, a badly made coat, or some kind of service that doesn't even work, and where the primary activity, in part because things are slop and low quality, the primary activity is the destruction of value rather than its creation. Every AI slop reel that you encounter is a chance you miss to actually see a piece of content that might teach you something, that might connect you with another human being, that might let you know how one of your friends is doing, or might let you see life through another person's eyes. It's also a chance that publishers and creators of meaningful content, whether they are a journalistic outlet, a creator you follow, or a friend that you're trying to catch up with, they aren't reaching you because the slop is reaching you instead. To me, the biggest problem with AI slop is its opportunity cost, the attentional space that it is taking up on the feed that could be taken up otherwise. On the level of the individual encounter, a piece of AI slop can be generative. I've found them amusing or even enlightening. In the comment sections, people can sometimes have very interesting conversations or sort of learn more about what this technology can do, or even share their own personal human stories. But I'd argue that on a broader kind of scale, from a bird's eye view, in the longer time frame, what AI slop does is it subtracts value from the system as a whole by blocking off chances for human interaction, blocking off chances for human creators to be compensated for their work, and blocking off just the overall quality of connection on the scarce space of that algorithmic scroll. I see AI slop as kind of like a black hole. The number affixed to it of views and likes goes up as value, in whatever way you want to count value, plummets in. There's all this electricity that's spent to render the reel and do the AI generation. There's all the seconds, hours, days of people's lives that are going into watching it. And for all that is poured into it by society, by culture, very little is given back. There's no exchange going on. It is simply a sucking up of value. And I believe that in a sense, this is what tech platforms do in all facets of society. They are monetizing culture by destroying as much of it as they can that exists outside of what they can code, analyze, and predict. Slop to them is perfect because it is an eminently legible, trackable, and controllable type of content, which serves to destroy value that is not legible, trackable, or controllable. If you're Gen Z like me, or a millennial, or even Gen Alpha, you've probably seen within your own life this rapid advancement of technology. In my own generational cohort, I felt as if my phone got more capable, more complicated, more responsible, and honestly more toxic, alongside my friends and myself. As we came into maturity, so did these platforms that we lived more and more of our lives on. And specifically, I had the experience of my phone, the platforms on it, the apps, acting as middlemen between myself and new experience. Every step into adulthood and responsibility came alongside an app. So if you wanted to start dating, it was Tinder, Bumble. If you wanted to get a job, it was LinkedIn or Indeed. If you wanted to learn about art or politics, you'd go on one of the social media platforms, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. It's not like these kinds of middlemen didn't exist in the past, it's just that they weren't all inside of the phone. A disc jockey on your local radio station would recommend new music to you instead of Discover Weekly. One of your friends would serve as a matchmaker, and you'd go on a date with someone that they knew. All of these middle folk in different transactions of our economic and social lives were never necessarily benign, nor were they omnipotent, for that matter. Just like the platforms themselves, it's just that they were nameable human beings that were embedded inside of like a context of interaction. They were people whose voices you heard, people you met, people you knew. Instead, now we have these automated processes that are serving this middleman function and are doing a lot of these previous middleman roles that were legitimately jobs. In fact, possibly the majority of jobs in a service economy are this kind of task, where you are serving as a bottleneck for someone to access a service, a good, another group of people, a certain audience, or a certain type of experience. There's that viral TikTok audio that goes like ordering a burger from a screen, and it's something I think about a lot.
Ordering a burger from a screen, you used to work here at 18, you prep the patties in the back, but now a robot does that.
But they also outcompeted these traditional middlemen by not being bound to specific places and times. And overall, what they've done on a phenomenological, everyday level is disrupt the way you and I experience space and time. So back in the day, if you had a favorite television show, it would air at like 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. And so the stuff it was in competition with were other shows that aired at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. On a secondary level, it's in competition with other activities like reading a book or things you might do at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. But now with the advent of Netflix, your favorite show can happen at any time, in any place in your life. And so it is no longer just in competition with the other possible activities at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, namely other shows on other networks. It's in competition with every other way you might employ your time or place yourself in life. And so the CEO of Netflix on an earnings call a few years back said the company's primary competition was sleep, because that's what people would be doing if they weren't watching Netflix. And so looking at the tech companies from this perspective, where their primary competition is the way people used to be doing things, filling their time, scheduling their days, orienting themselves in space and moving around, you could read them through that same lens. Amazon's real competition is going out in public. It used to be that if you wanted to buy a book or a plunger, you'd have to go to a brick and mortar store, interact with a flesh and blood human being, and pay real money for it. But now you just one-click order and it arrives in a box on your doorstep. It isn't just that it's more convenient, it's that it's out-competing the other ways that you would put yourself in space. Amazon wants you to stay home as long as possible, and so it makes that easy. There's an obvious impact on our physical public space from these businesses. Delivery centers, warehouses, buses, and vans going down the streets at all hours. But there's an even bigger, arguably indirect impact. How many small businesses haven't opened? How many brick and mortar shops have closed? Public life and public spaces are already kind of ruined in the United States because of like the car-centric nature of infrastructure, but even more so with the big platforms. Experiences that used to require you to go out in public, affiliate with your neighbors, are now done totally in private through this middleman of the platform and the phone. So these platforms gain control over parts of the economy, first by disrupting traditional patterns of time and space and making it so that the competition, whether it's doing something IRL or sleeping, just can't keep up. Then they manage to cement their power by being addictive, having good interfaces, algorithms that wrap you in and recommend stuff really hyper-targeted. But I think the third way they assert their control, and it kind of flows downstream from those two, is they destroy the value that exists around them. So you look at something like Uber Eats. Instead of having a bustling main street where people are sitting out at tables all evening having conversations, where people are employed as servers and cooks and dishwashers and managers, instead of all that, what you have is 12 ghost kitchens and a flock of precarious gig delivery drivers On the one hand, this does make for a leaner business that maybe has a better profit margin. But on the other hand, it makes for worse food, it's cold when it arrives at your doorstep, a less vibrant community, there is no street life anymore, less of a sense of like security or career for people who work in it in whatever phase of the process. And what that does is it subtracts overall value. And what it can do is that it can make it so if, say, you wanted to start a business, you couldn't possibly do that because now there's no longer foot traffic in the neighborhood because everything is ghost kitchens and Uber Eats. And that's just an example. But the idea is that by destroying value that can live outside the platform, what they do is cement the platform's own dominance. It may seem counterintuitive, but I think making a worse product and experience for people and therefore subtracting overall value from the system helps them. If your platform or your device is a bottleneck for access to other people, to goods and services, to, social capital, then by restricting that bottleneck even further, if it's the only funnel that people can get stuff from, then you make them even hungrier and even more desperate for you. They are trying to starve civil society into a shape small enough for them to swallow. A few weeks ago, President Trump was gifted a Tesla by Elon Musk, his scheming vizier at court. And what he said when he walked into the car was, "Everything is computer." And that's how a lot of modern Teslas are. They're filled with screens. Tesla, in a way, is also a data collection company as well as like an electric car company. They're making self-driving cars. And so in order to do that, you need a whole bunch of data about road conditions and how cars work. And so a major stream for their money is data collection. The same, you could say, is true of Twitter or of SpaceX. Most companies have a data collection arm to them. Shoshana Zuboff, in her work The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, describes a new kind of economic order, where in addition to the three primary things that go into production, land, labor, and capital, she says we now have data. Google, Facebook, all these companies realized that as they were providing a platform to meet X, Y, or Z function, to connect people in whatever way, there was this excess generated of data that they knew from people that they could then sell to advertisers to make revenue and money. You're probably familiar with that process. But the other thing about data is that once you have enough of it, you can kind of start to sort of fine-tune the quality of your platform to more precisely have people meet one another in a way to maybe increase the value that happens on the platform. You can make it targeted, you can use really smart integrations and technologies. But the other thing having a lot of data allows you to do is you can start to manipulate people. Because you've built kind of this encompassing blanket of optimization, of recommendation, of kind of formats and structures that people learn and then sort of have to fit their business or their social life to, you now control them. And through that data, you can kind of control the water in which they swim. A few months ago, Meta teased this proposal to the Financial Times, and it's something companies do a lot when they're considering a product or a new initiative. You tease it to like a financial press outlet where investors will hear about it. Specifically, what Meta wanted to do was introduce these AI profiles that would interact on their platforms just like regular people do. It wanted to create these features where you'd make a post and then you would feel like you were internet famous because a bunch of bots would comment on it, like it, reply to it. A situation where if you had a problem or you wanted to talk to an AI agent, you'd find them on Instagram. And all of these integrations and applications that people are talking about for AI, like a therapist or a friend or an employee, you would do in-house on Instagram. And so on the one hand, it is sort of a play for all of those markets of human interaction. If you can make them happen through AI profiles on your platform, you can capture that value and you can sort of direct the way things happen in those spheres of activity. And the platforms are always hungry for more stuff. But the way I was thinking about this headline announcement is that it's also a way to control people. For example, if you wanted to get someone into an echo chamber, you could just surround them with 500 bot profiles on their Discover page that all say the same thing and all look vaguely human. It's also a way to have another lever to kind of control the algorithm. They already say a lot of these platforms will heat posts by sort of promoting them, making them more popular than they really are. There's been studies and reports about TikTok doing this. Imagine if you could heat a post just by turning your personally controlled bot army onto it. In a sense, what the platforms are doing is what people said Russia was doing on Facebook before the 2016 election, but they're now doing it in-house. By mastering a bunch of synthetic interaction, you can sculpt the flows of attention to meet your ends. And what will make that effort successful is by destroying the value that real-life people and real-life social networks on these platforms create. And so in the same way that you could say Amazon destroyed bookstores or the social media platforms destroyed journalism, the social media platforms and AI are now trying to destroy internet culture. And it's a little ironic. And at this particular moment, I think it is extremely important to differentiate between internet and meme culture and AI slop. The line is thin. Often meme makers will use the tools or tropes or same generators as AI slop creators, but they transform it. They make it more interesting. And it isn't just a personal taste thing. I believe that when a meme maker who is creative or a meme community that is really working together and vibing and having synergy, when they take an AI generator, they add value to the overall system. When someone who's just a scammer making 40 videos a day in order to hack onto the monetization program, regardless of how funny those videos are, if they take value out of the system overall, they are slop. They built the social media platforms as slot machines to sell Temu to people, and every time you use one of them to do something else, that's a threat. So they would rather destroy your ability to reach other people, interact with other people, and be reached by other people by inundating you with AI slop and wrapping you in a cocoon of fake auto-generated interaction that will not build more understanding or influence in the world.